The Joshua Doctrine. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Judah Reigns. I'm going to read you some of the tenets that are contained in the Joshua Doctrine. Tenet number 5 states, support for close, direct diplomacy with reparation aid post-annexation between safe haven states and white territories for a period of time, and that time frame will be approved by the New Kingdom administrators over Jerusalem, New Jerusalem. Number 6 is support for restrictive measures over navigation and access to certain bodies of water, including waterways, namely the Pacific West Coast of North America and Lake Erie to the central northeast borders between America and Canada. 7. Authorization for temporary use of retributive measures over land, sea, air, and space, including unknown special forces, to establish in real time those two new nations as previously stated above. And what two nations am I speaking of? Again, safe haven states, which is the true New Jerusalem, to which the true Hebrew Israelites, whom are now called descendants of slaves, will be ushered to, which is along the West Coast, the Pacific, and which many have been uncovering was the ancient New Jerusalem as well. And then we have what are termed the white territories, those men and women from different societies of the Americas and indeed Europe who assisted the children of the Hebrews to their new home and played a major role in the Lord's great army and also in conducting themselves with honor and distinction during Armageddon. Again, hello everyone. Welcome to Judah Reigns. Today I'm going to be going over some of the tenets that are found in the Joshua Doctrine. The Joshua Doctrine, it has been named for the biblical Joshua, who was instrumental in as setting things straight with his army, leading the children of Israel to the promised land and dealing with the enemies that were there occupying it prior to the Hebrews' arrival. And so it was then, so it is today. A doctrine is a set of outlines of goals or policies and procedures by which a group will operate under in achieving those goals, outlines, or agendas. And we live in a time in which the Lord's great army is or has been born. And they are men and women of human and angelic beings who will constitute that which will deal with the wicked of this world, closing it out once and for all, and beginning, or the manifestation actually, of the new world. Not the one that's being planned now to crush humanity, but the one that will uplift it and bring it back to what it had once lost. Perfection in mind, body, and spirit, in harmony with our planet, with the universe, and with the Creator above. However, there will be a colossal loss of life due to the policies and procedures of Satan's world, which has been governing humanity for thousands of years. And so turning the ship, or really actually disembarking the ship and setting it to crash down to the bottom of the sea of history, it is now what is needed and what is unfolding before us. And so, as with any good army, there must be objectives and guidelines to which that army will conduct itself. And the place that we will begin is, of course, with the Joshua Doctrine, whose ultimate goal is to ensure the safe passage and travel and journey of the descendants of American slaves to New Jerusalem and the blessing of them thereof. So now I'm going to continue reading the tenets of the doctrine itself. Tenet number 8 is militia and or military support for the establishment and development of the safe haven states, which is a form of reparative resources allocated to descendants of American slaves, package or packages as provided by American government up to and including European country contributions. Number 9, close covenant of land, water, air, and space acquisitions and all resources therein, thereof, surrounding the safe haven states and white territory citizenry or peoples. Number 10, redistribution of U.S. natural wealth transferred to descendants of American slaves residing in the safe haven states only. The white territories will be a nation made primarily of the Lord's great army remnant who will reside in those territories with their families. So at this point, I'm going to give you a description of the Lord's great army. And you can find this under the book called The Battle of the Great Day, which was published in the late 1800s. And I'm reading from page 543, second paragraph. It says, in regards to the Lord's great army, a great people and a strong, there hath not been ever the like, neither shall be any more after it, even to the years of many generations. A fire devour before them, and behind them a flame burn. The land is as the Garden of Eden before them, and behind them a desolate waste wilderness. Yea, and nothing shall escape them. The appearance of them is as the appearance of horses, and as horsemen, so shall they run. Like the noises of chariots on the tops of mountains or kingdoms, shall they leap, like the noise of a flame of fire that devour the stubble, as a strong people set in battle array. It goes on to say, before their face the people shall be much pained, all faces shall gather blackness. They shall run like mighty men. They shall climb the wall like men of war, and they shall march every one on his way, and they shall not break their ranks. And they do not press one another, every one on his beaten track do they go forward, and they pass through between warlike weapons, and change not their purpose. Into the cities they hasten forward. They shall run upon the wall, they shall climb into the houses. Through the windows they make their entrance like a thief. The earth, the present social order of today, shall quake before them. The heavens, the ecclesiastical powers or religions shall tremble. The sun and the moon, the illuminating influence of the gospel and of the Mosaic law, shall be darkened. General infidelity having been widely prevalent, and the stars, the apostles' light, from Revelations chapter 12, verse 1, shall be observed, shall withdraw their shining. The dark night will have come, wherein no man can labor. And the subsequent scriptures to check are John chapter 9, verse 4, Isaiah chapter 21, verse 9, 11, and 12. The Lord's great army, as far as the human element is concerned, these men and women would have decided in their hearts, and I suspect because of the movement of the Most High God, creator of the universe, moving within their souls, they will decide for themselves to bless the true Hebrew Israelites. And because of their blessing, the true Hebrew Israelites, with their joining the Lord's great army and bringing their borrowed jewels, whether that be manumissions, whether that be intelligence, or whether that be their own training, they will be blessed by having their lives spared and also having the lives of their family spared. Again, We are reminded in the scriptures of Genesis 12, chapter 3, where God promised to Abraham, whose grandson Jacob was renamed Israel, where he states, I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse. And also Numbers 24, chapter 24, verse 9, where it says, during the prophecies of Balaam, he declares, blessed are those who bless you, and cursed are those who curse you. And so it is with today's descendants of American slaves. We have had many, many people cursing us day and night without fail, even now in the year 2026. And very few, if any, that have chosen to truly bless us. And blessings are more than just words, people. You are going to have to bring something. Now, of course, that state that is in the Middle East has been a wonderful demonstration of the abilities of our enemies to bless that which one can safely say could be the synagogue of Satan. But it seems that there will be some who will choose or may choose to bless Israel, the true Hebrew Israelites, and ushering them who are the ones spoken of in the Bible, who have had 400 years of slavery, who were brought over in slave ships, and who had served a horrible master who treated them badly for hundreds of years. There's only one people who occupied that prophecy to a T and with every I dotted, which is those that now reside in what is now called North America, United States, the black man and woman and their descendants. So now I'm going to read tenets 11, 12, and 13. 11, the immediate removal of all current non-descendants of American slaves inhabitants of the West Coastal lands. Number 12, the acquisition of national and local armaments to the highest point consistent with domestic realignments of those territories, lands, and states. 13, the setting up of a place for the uplift, restoration, and alignment of the descendant of American slaves peoples back to the creator of the universe. Possession and control of these places, including all safe haven states, all natural resources therein, adjacent to, accessible waterways, all domestic tangibles therein and thereof, up to the underground cities, bases, and or nearby military bases. And the safe haven states, of course, is going to be the West Coast. So we are looking at California, Oregon, and Washington State. I will continue to read to you from the Day of Vengeance, which is part of the book of the Battle of the Great Day, which is the time that is unfolding right now in 2026. And the reason why for the Lord's great army and what they must face. It goes on to say, the army of the Lord must face the terrible conditions of the evil day, when the dreaded elements now preparing for the conflict, the fire, shall have reached the climax of readiness. This army is that under the Lord's overruling providence will overthrow the thrones of kingdoms and destroy the strength of the kingdoms of the nations. And that is in Haggai chapter 2, 22. But where is there such an army? Will it be the German army, the French, the English, the Russian, or the United States Army? So great an army as it here described by the prophet, and one which is to accomplish such marvelous things, and that, as indicated, within a few years, or unfolding by each day, is what I'm putting in, that yet remains of this notable harvest period is probably in existence at this present time, and I would say or concur that it is. They are already adults and they are already ready. It goes on to say in this paragraph, though, and under some course of preparation for the coming work of carnage. The description of the prophet is not of an undisciplined mob, which might be easily dealt with, but those educated in the arts of war. But it is of a mighty host under a high degree of discipline. Please do understand that this army will not be under the command of any American president, nor of any monarchy of Egypt, I'll say of Egypt or Europe or the Vatican or any type of foreign agent. This army is going to be and has been handpicked by the Most High God. And the Lord of that army, or the commander of that army, has also been handpicked by the Most High God, creator of the universe. I will continue. On page 545, it says, "Where, then, we inquire, is there such an army, under present instruction and training, an army before which the earth or societies shall quake, and the heavens or religion or spiritism shall tremble?" And the associating scripture to that is Joel chapter 2, verse 10. It goes on to say in this paragraph, "Which shall boldly array itself against the conservative forces of Christendom, both civil and ecclesiastical, and hope even to cope with its present strength. Where is the army that in the near future will dare deny the powerful ones who have ruled through all the earth?" Now I'm putting that part in. All the worlds for so many thousands of years. Under Christendom's time-honored doctrines. Now I'm reading for the paragraph. It's statecraft and priestcraft that will sullenly ignore all its anthems, spurn its orders, and hurl back its thunderbolts of authority and organized power. That will face the roar of its Vesuvian artillery, defy its missiles of shots, and shall plow through its fleets of naval armaments, and snatching the diadems from crowned heads, topple the kingdoms into the midst of the sea. That will set the heavens on fire and melt the earth with fervent heat, thus making one vast universal wreck of the current order of things as predicted by the prophets. Now, many of these things that were just read were symbolic regarding the strength and power of the powers that should no longer be and that have been ruling under Satan and the demons, and working intimately with them in order to maintain the worlds. But now, with the Lord's great army, they will be empowered to cut through all of that. But the question remains, where is this army? I will read on. It says, "Thus, that such an army is coming into existence, I state that it already is." But this goes on to say, "and preparing for the desperate conflict, we are none the less forcibly assured by the signs of the times than by the sure word of prophecy. And it is the recognition of this fact, without any reference to or knowledge of the word of prophecy, that is now filling the hearts of Christendom with fearful foreboding and impelling statesmen everywhere to take extraordinary measures for protection and defense." And so, of course, with statesmanship, we can already pick up that terminology for all of the politicians and even the royal houses throughout the world. For the Christendom, yes, religion plays a very vital component, but there's also a spiritism or spirit channeling that the powers that shouldn't be have been engaging in with the great Satan and with the demons. And all that is what this army, we read that. So let's do 14, the liberation of the Southern Negro and wholesale immigration of peoples who classify themselves as white back to Europe and or white territories with exception. 15, ratification of the new frontiers inhabiting the United States of America to conform to clearly recognizable lines of the new nation states. 16, the peoples of the descendants of American slaves will be accorded lands by tribe, family lineage, and the freest opportunity to recover, restore, and develop back to what the creator of the universe originally intended them to be. I will continue on under the battle of the great day, the day of vengeance. It says, but in this very measure, for self-defense, and again, this is referring to acknowledging that the powers that shouldn't be are very powerful and that they have had a supernatural force guiding them. But I also want to let you know that the Lord's great army will also have a supernatural force guiding and backing them up as well. So it says here that, but in these very measures for self-defense devised by the powers that be, there is probably a snare which they do not realize. And so I want to say that everything that we see here today, all the measures that have been put in place and are being put in place, we hear about Project 2030 and so on and so forth. We are dealing with imperfect human beings. And we are dealing also with condemned supernatural forces or alternate forces, beings that have been condemned to this world. We must consider that they have lost power. And I will submit to you, you must also consider, with the advent of all the things that have been going on in our solar system, including 3I Atlas, up to all of the other comets that were circling around just a year and a half ago, that something has changed about our solar system. And quite possibly they were subduing, or what many have said, the binding of Satan and the demons that is restricting them from using their power to assist the human element. But on the flip side of that, you now have the human element of the Lord's great army and the angelic portion of the Lord's great army that is now, I submit to you now, in our solar system and also maneuvering. Whether or not these ones have said anything more since 3I Atlas came, we know that something took place powerfully with the sun that has changed the very dynamic of the way we are experiencing the reality of this world. I submit to you to consider that that was part of the breaking of Satan's power, and also breaking, or thus breaking, the power of those who were his prophets and those who were serving him very closely. So many of the things that you are seeing taking place in the world, and the chaos, and that they are not coming out to the goals that the powers that shouldn't be would want them to. May I submit to you what is going on in Iran and how people view the state that is over in the Middle East, which is diametrically different than the way they viewed them 5 years, 10 years, even 20 years ago. The reverence for that state in the Middle East is no longer there. This is not by coincidence. It is by design and by prophecy. Let me go on in the reading here of the Lord's great army. It says, the armies upon which they depend for defense. These are the ones that they're using right now in Iran. Those very armies, be it remember, are the armies of the common people. These millions of disciplined warriors have wives and sons and daughters and brothers and sisters and cousins and friends in the ranks of the common people, with whose interests their own are linked by nature's strong ties, and their service of thrones and kingdoms is only secured by imperative orders and made endurable by a remuneration which they are fast coming to consider as no satisfactory compensation for the hardships and privations which they and their families must undergo, not to mention perils to life and limb and health and fortune. And of course, we can say now here at the tail end of May 2026, with what is going on with Iran and the controversy that's surrounding it, we can readily see the disenchantment of those and their loved ones to the nature of what they're fighting for. What they're fighting for. I submit to you that there is another way and there is another world that has to be born. And that what you seek, which is basically liberty, life, and the pursuit of happiness, cannot be found in people who are found on the Epstein list and those who orchestrate the Epsteins of the world, which we know are directly connected to that state in the Middle East, to entrap people in such deplorable conditions and to take the very innocent of the human race and put them in situations in which they have been harmed and some even unalive in the most horrific and unimaginable ways. These men or women, I submit to you, whether out there on the Atlantic or the Indian Sea or wherever they have them placed around Iran, you have to understand that these men or women are thinking to themselves, what am I doing? Why am I here? What am I really protecting? And I would ask you that question. What are you really protecting? Why are you there? What are you submitting yourself to? And could there be a better way? Is there more just engagement that you can bequeath your services for? Now, as you might have imagined, that I have not read all of the tenets of this doctrine. There are a total of 19 with an addendum of 1, and I have only read several. It will be up to the Most High God, the Elohim of this universe, if there are those who are willing to submit themselves to righteousness, to rightness, and to justice. They may themselves personally know what the Lord has in store for them in the rest of this doctrine. Again, the Joshua Doctrine is in honor of the biblical Joshua, who stood with all the other true Hebrew Israelites and defeated those wicked ones who inhabited their God-given land and were able to establish their new nation. And finally, I will read to you, again, under the day of vengeance, which we are living under right now, on page 546, the bottom third paragraph, or the third paragraph, it says, just what conditions and circumstances will be used of the Lord as his voice of command to marshal this mighty army, we may not now be able to clearly surmise, but we live in a day which makes history rapidly. Do we not? And on general principles, It would not be unreasonable to expect movement in this direction at any time. It goes on to say here, but in our previous studies of volumes 2 and 3, we have seen that God has a set time for every feature of his plan, and that we are even now in this day of vengeance, which is a period of 40 years. Now it gives a date from back in the 1800s, but I'm just going to read here the very ending. It says, period of 40 years and will end very soon. It is said that such an army would be considered a strange work, and that the act itself would be very strange indeed. To what ultimate ends and to whom our Heavenly Mother and our Heavenly Father will use in order to bring this army to bear, we can relate it to what happened in the French Revolution, where it took one woman banging on a tin can for food for her children that set the men of her country in a rage and a desire for justice, that they were willing to do the ultimate, and that is turn on the royal houses, on the power brokers of their government. Well, wealth abundant was unevenly distributed, and the people, the greater population, suffered in abject poverty, while the rich waxed richer. And their grinding down of the common man and woman, they knew no level, no balance. It was just on and on and on. One action, one law, one project after another, until the bands of civility burst. We are now living in that moment. And not only was Three Eye Atlas a signal and the comets that trailed in with it, but also with these Epstein files and all the other Epsteins that live around in these cities, not only in America, throughout the world, who are still operating. And one can surmise without restriction, while decent men and women put their bodies on the lines to keep these people in the positions that they're in so they can continue to do the deplorable things that they continue to do. May I suggest to you that there are some, enough, not all, but enough, whose conscience is in crisis right now, who knows the right thing to do, but may lack the courage. But the lack thereof at this very moment is falling away. It is falling away, and what is left in its place is revenge. And coupled with the angelic force that is now in our atmosphere and quite possibly on the planet itself, and if we are to believe some of the NASA scientists of old who have gone to the grave, said that they look like human men and women, but really human men, who knows? You could be speaking to one right now, or you could be engaging one on your own travels throughout your daily life, and never know that you are speaking with a heavenly being that has been sent here to produce the justice that humanity so rightly deserves and is in desperate need of. We need to make things right. Things have to be made right. The world is not going in oblivion. It is already in oblivion, and it can no longer stand. A whole new dimension, a whole new way of life has to come to a fore, and it is right underneath the scab of uncivilized people who do not care about the sons and daughters of the common folk and consider them to be goyim, useless eaters, barbaric, and unfortunately expendable. Thank you for listening.